Hello. Thank you so much for tuning in to MTV. I'm your host, Emily Canales, and you're watching Sunday Scaries.
Is the man of the hour, the man of the year, the man of the century.
Okay, guys. So, what is up? This is like my first real YouTube video. This is something that I've been working on for a really long time and something that I'm really excited to start. Let me know if you guys like the background. I thought this was like the funnest space, funnest corner. I'll probably be going to other corners of my house to film other videos, but I thought this was really cute for the first time. So basically, let's get into what Sunday Scaries is going to be, or what I want it to be. To me, Sunday Scaries is like you laying in bed on a Sunday night and you're like, oh my god, I have to do this throughout the week. I have to do this. And then you get into a rabbit hole and then you're like, oh my god, what if like a plane crashes into the house and then I die? You know what I mean? Sunday Scaries is basically that. Like, you have the scaries about the week. So basically, what I want to do on this show is I talk about a personal Sunday scary, which probably isn't so personal because nobody really has a true individual experience in life. So I just thought it'd be a nice way for me to kind of go through my Sunday scary, go through that rabbit hole, and then the goal is to, by the end of the episode, that we're all cool and it's not a Sunday scary anymore. And we get to do it together, pretty much. So now that we've gotten into what basically Sunday Scaries is going to be, let's get into a juicy little Sunday Scary of mine. Well, let's go from the beginning. Actually, no, let me give you a big fun title. The Trap House Next Door Burned Down. What do we think? Do we like that title, guys? Okay, wait. Well, let me go all the way back. So next door was this really nice like white house, right? It's still there. Most of it anyway. Ever since I was little, we've always had somebody living right next door, and it was this elderly African American guy, and he was the sweetest man ever, and my family really loved him, and he was just really great. He wasn't married and he didn't have any kids, so he just stayed there by himself. He would drive around in his nice convertible, and it was silver, and he would just go on cruises, and he was like literally living the life, and he loved the Lakers, and my dad loved the Lakers, and they would just talk all the time, and it was great. And then I think I must have been around 12 or maybe a little younger, and he passed away. And pretty much the house kind of went back to the original owners. So turns out that that wasn't technically his house. He was kind of just staying there because he actually used to be the gardener for the original couple that lived there. And originally the couple, right? The wife had like dementia or Alzheimer's or something, and she was just constantly in and out of the hospital because I think she had cancer too. It was just like worst case scenario. And then the husband was constantly home, and the kids never really visited. It was sad. It was really sad. One day she collapsed. The wife collapsed in the house, and the husband wasn't there. He was out, and so the gardener had seen that she collapsed, and he called 911 immediately. And unfortunately, the woman passed away, and the husband later passed away as well. But since the kids never visited them, the gardener inherited the house instead of the kids. That was just how the couple had it in their will, that the gardener would inherit it and not their stupid fucking kids. And he lived there, the gardener, and then he died there. And then when he died, the house kind of went up in the air. But since he passed, then the kids of the original couple ended up inheriting the house. And it was the eldest daughter. And then she owns the house, right? So this is maybe circa, I don't know, like 2016, 2017, right? But basically, so she started owning the house, and then it stayed pretty empty for a little while. And then we got the first new um, owners, or like the first new tenants first moved in. And I think this happened around 2021. And so the first tenants was this gay young couple, and they were both Latinos, and they would always talk to my grandma, and they were super sweet, and they had a baby or like a puppy pit bull. He was the cutest little baby. But the thing is that, and I have to say, there is a pattern with the tenants that the eldest daughter would bring in. Because, right, like I said, the couple's eldest daughter ended up inheriting the house. So she just rents it out to people. But there's like one common denominator within all of these people. So with the first couple, not so much, right? With this gay couple, they're really chill. But at the time, I was too oblivious to drugs. So I just thought they were super sweet gay guys. But turns out that they were plugs, which is like, okay, low key. I respect the hustle, guys. Like, that's why you have a designer pit bull, period, queenies. And when they moved out, they must have stayed like at most 6 months, right? And I would talk to them all the time. Like, they would just sit there on the porch and really chill, just smoke. I don't know how I didn't know that they were plugs. But when they moved out, they just like, they on their front lawn, or like in front of their front lawn where there's a sidewalk, in front of the sidewalk, like the sidewalk has its own lawn, they just had like bins full of grinders and like disposable packages and everything. And I was like, oh, LOL. Right after them, maybe like 2 weeks later, my mom and I are just like, we're standing outside because this was like during the summertime and it's nighttime, and we're standing outside just chilling. And then we see a U-Haul pull up in the driveway, and we're like, new neighbors at this hour. But yeah, the sketchiest. Sorry, I'm like out of breath. The sketchiest couple moved in, guys, and I never saw them. Like, I cannot tell you how long they lived there, because it was like who moves in at nighttime? Maybe that's just me, but like drive-bys occur at night, you know? Why are you moving in at nighttime? And I get it, like you don't want anybody to see your stuff, but it's also just like, then what do you have? You know? Maybe it's just like, oh, you don't want people to know that you have a flat screen TV, so you move in at night because you don't know the area. Okay, right? That makes sense. But also it's just like, why are you moving in at night? I don't know if they were always there or if they were never there. But I remember my mom tried to talk to the lady. It was this couple, right? It was this like middle-aged black couple, and like honestly, that wife kept her man on a leash. The wife was she wore the motherfucking pants, girl. It was like the husband seemed like he wanted to settle in and, like meet the neighbors and just, you know, like they're gonna live here. Maybe we should talk to people, right? Girl. The wife would have none of it. And it honestly, there was no sign of life except for like this succulent that was on at the patio. But my mom tried to talk to the wife once, and homegirl ignored her completely. Like, was making eye contact with my mom but ignoring her. So they left. After that, this must be like 2022 now, right? So I the first couple was there 6 months, the second couple don't know. The next person to move in, we will call him Ghetto Superstar. I can say that because he was a ghetto superstar. This man, this man, I regret never asking him what kind of speaker he owned, because damn was that speaker loud. The bass was bumping, girl. And he would just blast the stereo and the speaker in his house like constantly at all hours of the day, girl. All hours of the day, girl. He was like one of those guys who would pretend to be busy, but in actuality, like, man is unemployed. So this was the thing, right? Like, I was starting to notice the pattern within the tenants. Like, the first couple, plugs. Weed is legal here in California, so that's okay. Second couple, sketchy, and maybe they were selling drugs. Maybe sus, just sus, period. And then this guy, right? Ghetto as hell, but I don't think he was the one dealing drugs. If anything, he was the one on the drugs. But he was just constantly on the phone, like, would randomly call somebody up and be like, yo, bro, yeah, I'm supposed to be in Florida right now. Yeah, yeah. No, fool, like, my production company let me down. Yes, I need somebody to like produce and mix my shit. Yes, girl. Not girl. And and everybody knows, girl. You're not fooling anyone. We know there's nobody on the other line. And then he would like hang up and be like, wait, 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 I'm getting another call. Pew. Yo! And it'd be like, same gist. And I would like see him around, I'd be like, sup? Hey. Because, I mean, maybe you guys are different, but I don't really know my neighbors like that. Like, I know of them. I'm not close to any of my neighbors like that. Like, I've lived in the same house since I was born, and I don't really talk to my neighbors like that at all. He was just really weird, but he was chill, and then finally he got a job. And it was pushing carts at my local Ralph's. And I remember my mom came home one day after coming to the grocery store, and I go out to like go help her with the bags, and she's just like, "Yo, Ghetto Superstar got a job." And I was like, "Uh, that's good, but why do you know this?" And she was like, "Oh, he said hi to me. He was pushing the carts at Ralph's." I was like, "Oh!" But I was also just like, huh, you know, what happened to being like a well known rapper? What was that about, baby? But also, you know what? Like, slow motion is still motion. I'm not one to talk about that. Anyways, Ghetto Superstar lives there for about a year, pushing a year and a half by himself. And there was constantly people coming in, right? Which is fine, Bookie's a grown man, he can have company, but it was constantly sketchy men and always coming in with nice, expensive cars. Mama, in the neighborhood I live in, you only have a nice, expensive car if you are a drug dealer. Let's be real. Anyways, anyways, um, yeah, so they were just weird, perverted, older, creepy men with nice cars, right? Ghetto Superstar moved out for a little bit and it was kind of vacant, but I liked it because it was quiet. And then, guess who made a return, babes? Ghetto Superstar was back within about a week, but he wasn't alone this time. He pulled up with a man named Mark. Mama, this is where everything starts going aggressively downhill for the entire neighborhood, but especially for us, because we are the ones who actively live right next to him. You see, it's my parents' house, the trap house, which is what I call it because trappers only live there. And then next door, this older woman who is never really home. And I hate her. One time I was sitting down in front of her driveway, as a small child does, playing with my friend, and she, with her big ass Jeep, almost purposely ran us over. And she stopped right before she hit us, and she's be like, I hope that teaches you a lesson not to sit in other people's driveways. Okay, it's giving bitter, but whatever, you know what? Like that. You should have hit me, bitch. But anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so we're like the only people who actively live right next to this trap house. So we get all of the consequences of it cuz like I was saying, we're not really that close with my neighborhood or with my neighbors. Maybe it's just my neighborhood, but like not all the neighborhood kids play together cuz we don't really know each other. Everybody honestly just sticks to themselves. And if you're not next door neighbors with the person, then you don't really talk to them ever. Mark was interesting from the get go. He was, well, he is. I think he's still alive. Cross our fingers, said not. So Mark was this maybe like 6'4" older black man. And you would think you're like an Indian summer in the middle of winter. He looked like he was older, but honestly, I think he was in his late 30s. So he had like a. Can I even say this? By the way, sorry, by the way, if you can't tell, I'm mixed as hell. I don't know if that gives me the liberty to say this. Man's fro was nappy as hell. He had never put a pick through it, a comb. I don't think that fro had ever seen water. And it was like a salt and pepper like fro. And just constantly in a robe. And I don't think he ever had anything under. So him and Ghetto Superstar became roomies. Gay? They didn't get along at all. So Ghetto Superstar toned it down. I think for like a week he tried to play his music and Mark wasn't having it. He would be like, "Turn that shit off!" Great. So now we have a guy who not only blasts his music 24/7, I mean, I guess he won't be doing that anymore because now we have this loud ass man next door. I would say that Mark was senile, but I don't think he was old enough to be qualified as senile. Like, Mans was maybe like 39 and senile. Later to come to find out, he was a heavy drug user. I mean, but you could probably tell just by looking at him. He looked 70 and maybe only had three teeth. And he was a perv. And at the time, I think I had just turned 18. And I remember one night I was coming home from dance practice and it was pretty late. Either I had a performance or it was just like the time, like it turned darker sooner. And Mark was just standing on the front porch, right? Just with his robe, just, literally just. And he loved to stare. So, both Ghetto Superstar and Mark like to do this thing where when they would hear us pull up in the driveway, which is obviously not in their driveway, so I didn't really see the need to constantly be doing this, all the lights in the living room would go on. I mean, you knew that somebody was in the living room because you could see the TV light like flickering, but they would turn on the living room light, walk to and open the door. And Ghetto Superstar did this specifically, even before he was roommates with Mark. He would do that and then all of a sudden be on the phone call. Like, we'd have the windows down. We could hear that you were not on the phone prior to us pulling up, but as soon as we pulled up, all of a sudden he was booked and busy. And he was on the phone with his mixer or his, I don't know, manager coordinating his tour. But yeah, so Mark started doing this and he would just stand there. He would like be sandwiched, like he would open the real door and then close it, and he would be sandwiched like with the real door closed behind him, in but like screen door, Mark, real door, just staring at us. And I remember this was the first ever like conversation that I had with Mark. But when I got out of the car and I'm walking up the driveway, he's like, "Hey." I was like, "Hi." He's like, "What's your name?" Like a dummy, I told him my real name. I was like, "Emily." And he was like, "Oh, how old are you, Emily?" And like a dummy again, with no real like situational awareness, I said, "Oh, I just turned 18." I'm smarter now. But at the time, I just, at the time, it was like I put like a target on my back, like, harass me. He said, "Oh, hey, Emily. Um, do you know how to bail somebody out of jail?" "Oh, no." And then he's like, "Well, I have this buddy of mine in jail, and I really need him to get out. And I was just wondering if you have any money to bail him out." And then that was when I decided to walk away. That was when, not any sooner. That was when I decided to walk away, and it was because of my mom. My mom was like, "No hablo inglés." Yeah, and then my dad heard and everything because he was already home, and he was just like, "OMG, what the fuck? Why do we keep getting these weirdos, right? This was like within the span of 3 years. Why do we keep getting these weirdos?" Yeah, so that was Mark for you. And he was a character. So they would fight, right? Constantly, 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 to the point where Ghetto Superstar left. And talking to him, he went to Florida, I think. The world may never know. And then there was this one. And then there was this Mark. Mark would get picked up. And the people who would pick him up would spin the block and then drop him right off. So obviously they're doing a drug deal, or Mark gets excited easily. um yes, Mark and his tracksuit that has never seen the inside of a washing machine and his crusty shoes, right, would always take these little trips with people in their nice, expensive cars and would be right back and just disappear into the house. And one time, well, let me, a little bit of backstory. So, that screen door I was talking about? That screen door was really interesting. So, I don't know who installed the doors, but basically, To get inside the house, right, you need a key. You need to unlock the door. The door locks. You can lock it from, well, actually, I don't really know exactly how it works, but basically, to get outside of the door, you also need the key. You need to unlock from the inside of your house to get out. And then to get in, you also need the key. So, because of that stupid door, he had locked himself out multiple times. And since this isn't his real house, he is renting it out or he's staying there for free, which is one of my many hypotheses on how this kind of tenant situation works. He would often break into the back house. Now, the back house is the closest to, you guessed it, my section of the house. You see, I have a little apartment back here in on my parents' property, and I moved out here when I started university just to have kind of my own space. And um, yeah, this whole situation was happening during my first semester here at uni, and kind of my first time living by myself. Still on my parents' property, yes, but still by myself. But when I knew he was staying in the back house, adjacent to where I stay. Oh my god. Because, like, I knew he liked me in a way. You know what I mean? Yeah. I knew that was a situation, and it was pretty freaky, but he would always have to call, like, the actual owner, the lady, the daughter of the original couple, and she would kind of just always let him in. Or he would just be wandering on the property for days, crying. And I felt bad. Like, he was out of it, and he would just be out and cry and yell. There was something wrong with Mark, and that was very easy to see. And I didn't know to the extent of what was wrong with him until he burned down the house. So, this must have been like my first week off of break after my first semester at university, and I was just having a grand old time. And my dad was like, "Let's go out. Like, let's go do something. Let's go to this place." So, I was getting ready here in my room. I was getting ready to go out with my dad, and it must have been like 9 a.m. 8:45, 9 a.m. And I hear the fire alarm going off, like beep, 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 beep. But it was like that same beeping noise that it makes when, like, you don't change the batteries of the fire alarm, the fire detector. So it was making the same noise as it does when you don't change the batteries in the fire alarm. And because of that, right? Like, I know a lot of people. I mean, I personally changed the batteries in my fire detector, especially after this situation. But yes, right. I know it's common. People don't really change the batteries. That's okay. So I just thought, I didn't know where it was coming from. So I just thought, oh, somebody hasn't changed the batteries. Like, the batteries must have died and it's just going off. So that's what I just thought. And so I continued to get ready. I start blasting my music on my TV, and it's just like I can't hear anything anymore. And then I go over to my dad's, or I go over to my parents' house, and my dad is on the couch and he isn't even ready. And I was like, "Bah!" So at this time, must have been like 10:30, and then I'm washing my hands, not washing my hands. I'm washing the dishes in my parents' house, and I'm like, now I'm further in the back of the house, right? I'm not in the front of the house where the street is. I come back to the living room and my dad has yet to be ready, and so I'm just making small talk as in like, I'm ready and I even started washing your dishes. Can we go now? And then I hear people talking outside, young people selling Wi-Fi, passing through. And then my dad and I are talking, and then I hear glass break. I hear a big like, insert glass breaking noise, and I hear the guys who are like, a handful of young guys are screaming like, "Sir, sir, are you okay? Oh my god." And then my dad runs to the window to go see what's happening, and he's like, "Oh my god, Emily, like, you can't look out here." And I was like, Well, now I have to look. Like what do you mean I can't look out there? And you know how it's saying like my neighbors aren't nosy. Everybody just sticks to themselves unless you are next door neighbors. I hear people running outside like, "Oh my god, oh my god." And then we also live with my grandma. My grandma runs outside and she's just screaming like she is unconsolable. And then my dad is just like, "Stay in here until I call you." My dad is a pretty big guy. And safe to say he kind of scares me. So when my dad says, "Stay right here," I'm going to stay right here. And so like in a movie, he just I see him, he looks back, the door shuts, and the noise just increases and increases. And I'm trying to figure out what is happening. Like I'm looking out the window and people are running towards our house, but like past our house. Like it looks like they're running at our house and then they divert past us to go to the house next door. So now I'm like, what is going on? I'm hearing people call the cops, call the cops. I'm hearing my grandma yell in Spanish like, my house, my house, like, and then yelling at my dad, like, do something to save my house. I'm like, my house? Like, what's wrong with the house? And then I hear my dad. He's like, Emily, Emily. So I run out there. Girl, nothing could have prepared me for what I was going to see. Like, and mind you, I was just out there maybe at most 30 minutes ago when I came from my house into my parents' house. Like I had to walk past I had to walk yeah, past the house cuz I had to go around basically from where I'm at. So I live in the back. I had to get out of my house, walk along the side of my house in between Mark's house and my house. Walk along, go around the front and walk into my parents' house like through the front door. I was just there. It was fine. I walk out there, pure chaos. Literally, I didn't even know white people lived on our block. Everybody, literally the entire street was there. And I turned to my right to where Mark's house is, and I just see Mark on the patio, but not in the same way that I had seen him for the past 6 months since he started living there. Mark is in his robe, covered in blood, because he kicked through the window to get out of the burning house. There is blood all over the patio, all over Mark, the shattered window, and then I look up and the house is on fire. Like, the house is on fire. And the Spectrum, AT&T, whatever the fuck guys were in the front yard trying to get in because he had the entire like front gate locked. Like he had a gate around the house and everything was locked. Like the driveway gate locked, the front gate locked. And it's like a tall gate. It must be almost to my height. So I'm seeing like people from across the street. We have a family across the street with younger guys. They're hopping the fence to get over. They're running and grabbing like the gardening hose. This is all happening, right? And I just opened the door and my dad is like, Emily, like he snapped me out of it and he's like, help me with the hose. So I'm unraveling the hose and then my grandma is just like grabs me by the shoulders. Emily, like in Spanish, my house is going to burn down. Fix it. And I can talk about my grandma in a different different episode. But I was like, Grandma, you gotta chill. Like, you gotta go inside. What do you mean I'm gonna go inside to just sit there and wait to die? And I'm like, Grandma, there is an entire cement driveway like in between us. As long as the embers don't catch into the house, like it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. And thankfully, like the fire was on the farther side, like the farthest side. It wasn't that close to our house. It was like, well, obviously it was the house next door, but like it was in the far back corner, so it was nowhere near us. Like, thank the Lord, everything like we would have been fine. I could have just told her that, but I mean, I did, but there was no consoling a woman who was fearful of her entire house burning down. yeah, people are calling the cops, people are videoing. I'm getting I'm getting messages from citizens saying a house is burning down within 0.01 kilometers from you. Like my neighbors are on live stream. They're like Facebooking, they're Skyping their family in Mexico, telling them that the house is burning down. And yeah, my dad is such a trooper. He just ran over there. I don't know how, but he just spawned into the front yard of Mark's house with our garden hose and he's spraying it. And yeah, fire trucks came by. They put out the fire. It was big, bro, and I'll insert photos here of the afternoon of. It was so crazy. Like the house, the air smelled of burning for about a week after, even after like they put out the fire, even after like they boarded up the house. It just reeked of fire. And yeah, Mark was distraught. Mark was very distraught. So basically what we were kind of told, like after my dad and I spoke to the firefighters, my dad, he was asking them all the questions. I was kind of just there to like absorb it all, make sure that my like I was the one remembering everything. And basically they're saying that Mark fell asleep on the couch while he was smoking from a crack pipe. Yeah. And basic like they were saying that a crack pipe started all of it, but guys, obviously you don't do crack because that's not that's not possible. But yeah, like with the crack pipe you need to constantly like have the fire going. I don't know how that would have started, but they found a crack pipe on the scene. I'm assuming that he was, like smoking the crack and then maybe started a cigarette and then got too high and then knocked out. And then the cigarette lit the couch on fire, which lit everything else on fire, and he woke up to that. So he was freaking out. And then, like I said, the screen door is really odd and you need a key, right? So he must have ran to the front door, tried to open the door, and was like, I don't have the key, sees the window right next to the door, and then kicks it and breaks through. Like I said, Mark is 6'5", big burly man. And he was bleeding on the front porch because his entire shin was just cut open with the glass. And yeah, I saw a grown man's balls that day. There was something wrong with Mark. Not even drug related. Like, there was something health wrong with Mark after seeing his parts. There was something wrong. I think he had cancer or something. But yeah, I can't remember if they dragged him down or if they walked him down, but paramedics, they wrapped him up, put him on a stretcher, and put him into the ambulance, and I've never seen him since. And yeah. Like I feel like I'm making it sound so dramatic, but it's also just like I lived next to that guy and you were a crack fiend. And my dad and I still ended up going to where we were going. Like we stayed and talked to the cops, we stayed and talked to the firefighters because we were the neighbors, and we told them what we knew about Mark, how Mark moved in here about 6 months ago and nobody really talked to him, but we all knew that something was off with him. And when my dad and I came back from where we were going and we came back, we saw a guy in a pickup truck kind of just sitting like parked right in front of the house. And he was kind of looking around like just like in shock of how the house was left. And we're like, "Hey, like are you here to board up the windows?" Because the firefighters had to bust open to get in there. Like all that is left of the house is just a shell of a home. And he was like, "No, I'm Mark's cousin." And we're both like, "Dun dun dun." He was like, "Well, did you guys know Mark?" And we're like, "We knew of him." And my dad and I were telling him like, just, he didn't live here for long, and he didn't really talk to anybody. But when he talked to us, he was a little off. And the cousin was like, that damn Mark. So apparently, Mark lived, well, before anyway, before we knew him, he lived a very luxurious life. Both of his parents were artists, and he was an only child, and that man had everything he could have wished for as a child. He lived in the hills, and he had a beautiful house with housekeepers and everything he ever wanted. But then, after some tragic freak accident, both of his parents died, and he was just left with their house and their money. And he was a rich, spoiled, only child. And, one thing led to another. He became a drug addict. And he ended up losing all of his inheritance, losing the house, and he was in and out of jail and constantly in trouble with not only the law, but with other drug dealers because he could never pay for what he was using, pretty much. And yeah, the cousin was like, I've sent him to rehab countless of times. Like it was only a matter of time for something like this to have happened to him. And he asked us, he's like, well, he didn't even know if his cousin was dead or not. And he was like, is he dead? I'm like, no, no, no. They took him to the hospital, and I told the guy the name of the hospital. Like, I remember where they said that they're taking him. He's like, okay, thank you. Yeah. And he wrote it down. He said that he was going to call. But yeah, it was really sad. So I guess he had been using for years, which is why he looked so much older than he actually was. Because talking to his cousin, he was like, yeah, he's like 39. And I'm telling you, like, the man looks senile, you know? How old do you have to be senile? I think much older than 39. But yeah, and that was that. Apparently my grandma said that he's been back once and he looked normal. Oh, as normal as Mark looked, and he looked around the house. He broke in and then only stayed for about 5 minutes and left. I don't know if he was looking for leftover money. Thankfully, we've never seen him again. It's been about a year and a half since then. We've had our fair share of squatters. We actually had a group of squatters that moved in at night also with the U-Haul. They were not tenants. We had to call the owner, the eldest daughter of the original couple, and yeah, she pulled up with all of her kids and they kicked them out. And one of the squatters left in an Uber. And then since then, it's just like young kids trying to look for a place to smoke, I guess. But yeah, everything is fully boarded up. There's cameras all over the property, and we have our own cameras too, just to make sure, keep us safe. But yeah, so I guess the moral of the story, the Sunday scary of this situation is that Mark coming back to kill me. I know that this would never happen, and I never gave him a reason to kill me. But I was just like so incredibly afraid of him after that. Like, if I wasn't scared of him before, girl, I was scared shitless now. I just knew what he was capable of. I mean, not that like he was an arsonist and he like purposely set the fire. Oh my gosh, not that he purposely set the house on fire and like he was an arsonist or anything, but you know, like lived right next door. He was crazy. There was a case open like 6 months ago. We had some guy from the government from the city come by, and he interviewed me and asked us like about the whole shebang. And I yapped my butt off, because if there's any way that I can get compensation for the fact that a house next door burned down, emotional damage, physical property damage, oops, I was cool with it. But my mom said no, so I didn't give my name. But yeah, that's that. But yeah, I hope that was okay, guys. I think I can kind of ramble on. This is mostly for my close friend baddies who sit there and watch my like 20 stories when I go on a rant. People have been saying that I'm their favorite podcast to watch or listen to when they're getting ready in the mornings, and I think I let that compliment go to my head because now I'm starting a series. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. There's a couple more topics that I want to talk about and get into. If you guys have any suggestions or of anything that you think I would have fun talking about, then let me know. I hope that this was interesting and funsies to watch or listen to. And yeah, if you stayed till the end of the video, thank you so much for listening to me, guys. Um yeah, you staying to the end of the video is making my YouTuber dreams come true. Go follow me at ECMainLaylas on Instagram. I'm very active there. But like I said, more things are coming and I'm just so excited. Okay, bye. Take care. Love you. Nah.